Of Apples and Magic by Legion of Pony. Of Heated Desires. Applejack had Twilight pinned under her, her muzzle and tongue rubbing quickly on Twilight's soaked mare hood, her hoof rubbing her lower belly and teats. They had just entered Twilight's bedroom, having gone and seen a movie and had a casual dinner. One thing led to another, and they had started discussing the last time they had made love while walking home. This seemed to make Twilight's attitude quickly turn far more sultry, with her more than intentionally starting to grind her side against Applejack's, or sneaking a kiss, asking Applejack to follow her to the castle, then almost instantly upon their arrival had guided her into the bedroom. Applejack wordlessly asked, her muzzle still buried into Twilight's swollen lips, trying to gauge her own performance. She only got a deep moan in response, and took that as she was doing well, proceeding on suckling on her mare friend's clitoral hood more, trying to get her to wink again. Twilight moaned again, her head pressed tightly to the pillow as her pussy let loose a flurry of winks, her hips rocking harder as Applejack's tongue made direct contact for the first time with her small, heart-shaped pleasure nub. Twilight really seemed to be enjoying this much more than usual. "You love eating me out, don't you, my sexy mare? You love licking my soaking wet pussy so fucking much," Twilight said in a deep tone, her mane frazzled from her frenzied thrashing on the pillow. This was the most radical Applejack had ever seen Twilight acting during sex, and the most vulgar she had ever heard her speaking. It wasn't exactly sure how to act about it, so she just kept licking and sucking. More. Oh, Celestia, more. Oh, yeah. Suck on my clitty," Twilight moaned out, her hooves atop Applejack's head as she lay on her back and grinding her crotch somewhat roughly into her muzzle, an extensive amount of her fluids streaming out around it as Applejack did her best to keep up with her demands. She had just recently started licking and suckling on her clit exclusively, feeling it winking in her mouth and slathering the sensitive nub with her tongue whenever it did. Twilight really seemed to love that, as her hooves gripped a bit tighter and her cries grew louder. Applejack was somewhat suspicious with why Twilight was being so rambunctious this time, but before she could think about it too much, Twilight started to roughly push her muzzle deep into her puffy slit again, with the farm mare feeling Twilight's contractions getting stronger, her winks more staccato, before she finally let out a squeal. "Coming!" Twilight squealed out in a high-pitched tone as she reached her climax, her hooves holding Applejack tightly against her, as the latter felt Twilight's entrance pulling inwards on her muzzle, the extra thick wetness that was released and constant trembles telling her, without a doubt, she had just made her mare friend come. Harder, and much sooner than usual. Twilight kept a death grip on Applejack's head and ground against her muzzle, keeping her buried into her suckling, winking pussy all the while. Her clit was pulsing with each thundering heartbeat. Applejack tried to keep it contained to her mouth to please the orgasming mare more and prolong her apparently enormous climax. But once or twice the slippery flesh escaped her with a wink and had to be trapped again. This went on for a solid 20 seconds before finally Twilight released her and collapsing bonelessly onto the bed, seemingly spent for the moment. I really need it. Thanks, Applejack," Twilight said between pants, her mind still swimming and her inner muscles still twinging. But it wasn't enough. She still felt that she needed more, but after a break. As she lay resting, she started softly rubbing Applejack's ears with her hooves, knowing she liked it quite a lot, and using it as a physical thank you for pleasing her so well. "Hey, Twi," Applejack asked, with Twilight looking down and seeing her off-white mare come all over her muzzle as she looked up in response. As she usually saw the matted fur on her fiancé's muzzle, it made the situation only that much more sexy to her, knowing where it had come from and how it had gone there all too well. So, you enjoyed yourself? You getting a bit rough there. Oh, sorry, I'm just really horny, I guess." "I could tell," Applejack deadpanned before continuing in a much lighter tone. "Anyhow, for my turn, I was thinking we'll use your toy on me again tonight." The ear-rubbing stopped as she asked that, leaving Applejack somewhat disappointed at losing that lovely feeling, and wondering just why she had stopped. "Twi?" she asked, looking up to Twilight and seeing the lavender mare's face twisted into a near-maniac grin. The face that always told Applejack she would be getting some really good sex tonight. "I've got a better idea," Twilight said as her horn lit up in its magical glow. Applejack started feeling strange as she did. She felt that just above her pussy was getting very warm and felt like it was stretching, expanding. As she looked down, she saw Twilight's magic encasing her whole lower belly, and a lump started to grow out of her crotch. "Twilight, what are you doing to me?" "It's okay, Applejack. It's just the same spell I used on Hearts and Hooves Day." But why, Applejack asked, but made an uncomfortable whine instead as she felt the expansion continue. She felt this was all very sudden, but this wasn't the first time Twilight, in heated moments, had cast this spell on herself and gone to town on Applejack. It was, however, the first time it had been cast on Applejack. Having always trusted Twilight with everything and having chosen to marry her on that fact among the many others, Applejack simply waited for the weird feelings to end, finding the stretching to feel strange and uncomfortable, but in no way painful. Indeed, actually kind of arousing. After a while, Applejack started feeling a tingling inside her head, briefly growing dizzy and her vision swimming before stabilizing again, and she felt like she had something extra now in her mind. That must have been the stallion instincts Twilight had told her came with the spell kicking in. When the dizziness passed, Applejack looked down at her crotch for the first time since Twilight had started casting, and found the spell's results were quickly revealed to her. She saw she had grown a pair of hefty testes, as well as a bulging sheet now between her legs. The sensations of Twilight's magic still gently melding the inner flesh, making Applejack feel rather warm and tingly, as thousands of new nerve endings formed with each passing second. "Why do you ask? You remember how you were asking if I wanted to have foals a couple of months ago, and I said I wasn't sure? We were confused about how to go about it, who would carry, and if we wanted to bring a stallion into the mix to stud one or both of us. But then I remembered we had the spell instead. We don't need any pony else but you and me," Twilight said, and giving a lustful gaze to her wife-to-be. "I've decided I really want your foal, Applejack. I want to be the one who carries our baby. I just cast the real version of the spell, and it will make me pregnant, if you're ready." "But we ain't married yet, Twi. Plus, how could we possibly have foals if neither you nor I are in heat yet?" Applejack asked, overtaken by just how very suddenly she had found herself in this situation. She and Twilight had been fooling around like they quite often did. She had asked to use Twilight's toy. Now she suddenly had a penis, and Twilight was talking about having foals now, even when there were no signs of either of them being in season, and they weren't wed yet. "Well," Twilight said, laying her horn once more, and in an instant Applejack was engulfed by the lightly musky scent of a marin heat surrounding her and making her new, now fully formed equipment quickly start growing to full mass. "I kind of am in estrus, and have been for a couple of days now. I've just been using the spell to hide the physical signs of it like I always do, and using my special dildo to keep myself under control. Kind of out of habit, I guess. I can't really hide my horniness around you, though it would seem. The spell can't stop that part, even after lots of unicorns and even alicorns tinkering with it over the years. As for us not being married, well, we will be in a couple of months, right? I really need this, Applejack." Oh, Applejack stammered out distractedly, that scent of Twilight's heat awakening something within her that had apparently had come with the spell. That very distinct odor setting her new stallion instincts ablaze. A desire to mount Twilight, almost overpowering all other thoughts. Dang, is this how stallions feel when an in-season mare's nearby? How the hate they keep off of us? Well, I guess that's why most stallions or mares keep away from each other during the heat Oh, wow, Twilight said as she looked underneath Applejack's barrel, and now fully saw what she had created as she coaxed it out, more than a little lust in her voice as she started to feel that burn in her belly again. The burn that the anti-estrus spell she had just removed had kept reduced. The sight of Applejack's fully erect gift quickly setting her breathing instincts alight. It was big. It was really big. For sure looking out of place even on the large frame of Applejack. Twi, is it supposed to be this cold darn huge? Applejack asked as she studied her new addition, laying on her back and prodding at her sizable new cock, shuddering from the new weird sensation as she did. Twilight looked over her mare's black-skinned length, finding it entirely black from the base to glands, as were her balls, with only a few specks of pink along it. Twilight found that it wasn't outrageously big, but was certainly very big in the upper range of an earth pony stallion's size, noting that it actually looked a bit bigger than her dildo in both length and girth. That meant it was probably at least 13 inches long and at least 6 in circumference. Her unflared glands at least 8. Earth ponies were well known for having thick cocks and flares, and Applejack's was no exception, it would seem. Well, the size the spell makes it is kinda based on your genetics, Twilight explained, trying not to go into too much detail on the mechanics. The spell fakes a Y chromosome in the targeted DNA only, so basically, this is what you would have been packing if you were a stallion instead. Oh, it's pretty impressive, isn't it? Yep. It's really impressive, I must say. Twilight's voice oozed with lust. Applejack felt her penis flex again, quite a weird sensation to her, and then turned to her mare. Despite how strange all this was to her, as the result of these kinds of spells, was rarely something she had ever truly understand. Applejack found herself still very horny, and even more so now that her new instincts were urging her to find the nearby mare in heat and breed her. Did I ever say how sexy I were, Twi? Applejack said in a deep, husky tone, her new instincts becoming incredibly hard to restrain. Her desire to mount Twilight and rut her for all she was worth, to truly breed her, all Applejack could focus on. Applejack, I already know what you want, and I want it too. Say it. Say you want me to put your cock in me. Say you want to inseminate, impregnate, and initialize the conception and development of a zygote in my uterus. Come on, Twi. If you ever really gotta be all scientific, like, about everything, it's kinda killing the mood. I don't know, I think it's kinda sexy, Twilight said, getting distracted by her love for verbal correctness, before getting back to the task at hoof. Now say it. Say you want to knock me up, or I'm changing you back to a mare. After all, if you don't want your foals, you asked me for. A little wiggle of her rump, a sway of her hips. Fine. Twi, I want to put this big, huge dick you gave me into your pussy and rub full into ya. Applejack growled the last part, and Twilight quickly moved to position herself appropriately for what had been offered. Applejack gasped softly as a large purple dildo was suddenly brought into her sight, different than the one she and Twilight had used on each other a few times now. It swiftly disappeared from her sight, but she quickly felt as it pressed against her still moist marehood, its flat tip threatening penetration but falling just short. Apparently, she had not lost her pussy in gaining a penis, and Twilight was proving such by teasing her. Twilight trembled as her heat burned hot, the hard cock in front of her at the forefront of her desires. Close enough. Now, you earlier asked if I would let you use my toy, and now you're gonna get it. And love it, she said, a mischievous smirk on her face, her eyes slitted and her nose lightly wrinkled. The face Applejack loved her to make in the bedroom because it always foretold her taking control of the situation. She loved it when Twilight took control. This is my special estrus helping dildo. However, you see, I enchanted this toy to do some things that the average dildo can't. By manipulating the latex molecular structure and infusing it with some bioorganic traits, Applejack kind of tuned it out then. She never intended to be rude, but it wasn't uncommon for Twilight to go on a tangent about some brainiac thing or another. Applejack had learned that the best way to deal with it was just to smile and nod at regular intervals, especially if it was regarding something she could never understand, like unicorn or alicorn magic. And then, as the enchantment senses the increased contractions when the mare approaches or begins orgasm, it expands the mass of the flare and produces seminal fluids, which is then, and quite pleasantly I may add, ejaculated into her. That got Applejack's attention. Hold up now, are you telling me that this here hunk of rubber can flare and come? Like, real cum? Applejack asked, her eyes wide. She felt herself getting wetter at this prospect, her marehood winking against the toy teasing her. Twilight easily picked up on Applejack's interest and nodded. It's latex, and yep, this thing can fill you up pretty well. It's one reason why I never really seem to show any abnormal horniness when I'm in estrus. The anti-heat spell and the fact that this lovely thing keeps my body quite contented and full of stallion spunk. It's sterile, of course, so I don't get pregnant by it, but... Twilight found Applejack liked her idea when she started to grind herself against the dildo and made her smirk, then rubbing it a bit harder and earning a quiet moan. I usually need this during this time of year, and it and I become best friends for a few days until my heat finally drowns out from all of the cum it pumps into me. But this time, I don't need it to end my heat now, do I? I've got you for that now. I've got you to pump me full of hot, lovely cum, and make a fall in my belly instead. Speaking of making a fall in your belly, Twi, can you Applejack asked, now grinding her cock against the bed in her arousal. The sheets not very pleasing, though. It didn't feel quite right to her inner stallion. She needed something more, and knew just what it was. She needed Twilight. Breed? Alright, Applejack. We can procreate however you want. How do you want me, you sexy stud? Procreate, huh? How about I just rut ya, pony style? Seems like the best for my first time as a stallion. That's fine by me. An oldie, but a goodie. Applejack then watched as Twilight quickly got into position, putting her chest on the bed, her rump and tail raised high in the air, showing Applejack her swollen, glistening marehood. Applejack's cock was already completely swollen in her excitement, the titillation of the earlier rubbing by Twilight only making her need to breed her even stronger. Twilight was more than ready herself, with the dildo making its way to tentatively rub Applejack's own eager set of lower lips, making her clit lightly wink in anticipation. Hey, Applejack, you just gonna sit there and stare at my vulva, or are you going to engage in intercourse already? Twilight asked somewhat impatiently as her belly continued burning, the demanding tone surely getting Applejack's attention more, and making her disproportionate penis flex. Are you sure about this, Twilight? I mean, are you ready for a fall? Applejack, Twilight stated, even though her voice showed some hesitance. I know exactly what I'm getting into, and I want you to be the only one to truly take my virginity and make me a mommy. I want you to rut me. Now, just go slow at first. You have my permission, and don't worry, I'll be fine. Applejack audibly gulped, and could tell by Twilight's barely masked tone that she was nervous as well. Whether because Applejack was her first real stallion, or the sheer size of her cock. Well, okay, here we go. Not entirely sure how to use her new appendage, Applejack just decided to do what felt right for her, as she had always done in matters of the flesh like this. She mounted, climbing up onto Twilight's back and hearing her mare give a pleased sound as she did, and started off by hot-dogging the length of her warm stallionhood along the entire length of Twilight's slit, receiving a light moan from her for her efforts. That feels so amazing, Twilight cooed, feeling herself winking against the warm rod of flesh now at her pussy with each slide of it over her slick entrance. especially liking it when the medial ring rubbed over her clit. Meanwhile, she kept rubbing the dildo gently over her mare friend's messy pussy for a while, mimicking what Applejack was doing to her own, coating it in her now profuse fluids, well to make the next step easier. "Okay, Twi, enough teasing. I need you. Now," Applejack said lustfully, her hips pulling backward now in expectancy of thrusting into her mare, as well as against the dildo more, wanting to take a stallion's length into her again and rut her heated mare as well. Without another word, Twilight nodded and positioned the levitated dildo so that the flare of it was facing Applejack's entrance, lightly pressed against her, and watching Applejack squirm as she felt the flat tip on her lower lips again, pressing just to the point of breaking through before stopping again. Twilight then added a bit more force behind her push, making the flare of the toy pop into Applejack. "Then take me away, Applejack. Breed your fertile mare and get her pregnant." Applejack felt constricted by the heat and wetness, as her large stallionhood was suddenly forced into Twilight's tight marehood for its first time. Figuring by the light tingling on her rump that Twilight had pushed against her rump with her magic and made her go inside. It wasn't at all unpleasant, but it was strange and slightly painful, like being hugged too tight, but in a more intimate way. "Oh, Twi," Applejack moaned out, as Twilight, in turn, kept sliding the toy slowly more into her. Applejack felt as the toy went deeper into her own marehood, while her cock was surrounded by Twilight's squishy, ever-needing innards, adding another layer of pleasure on top. Both her mare and stallion breeding instincts were flaring at the sensations. She was breeding her fertile mare, and being bred at the same time, her mind having trouble processing that. Twilight made more of the dildo disappear into her mare friend's snatch as she felt herself being filled in kind, the pleasured sounds coming from Applejack letting her know she was quite enjoying it, from both parts. Just as importantly, she felt her own need to be stuffed full being sated, the once burning in her belly reducing it to an insistent throb now. Twilight felt even better than her dildo could ever hope to accomplish by far. Real flesh and blood apparently impossible to perfectly replicate in this instance, even with advanced magic. She felt as Applejack slowly went deeper into her body crying out happily for each inch that entered, for the warm body atop hers, and the hooves squeezing against her chest, for her mate filling her so full of herself, and soon would be filling her even more so with the seed of their foal. Suddenly, Applejack became acutely aware of the dildo sliding even deeper into her, it reaching the same depths the other they had used had many times before, but feeling different now that she had Twilight wrapped around her cock. Everything seemed so much more intense. Something else then occurred to Applejack. In the time she had been recovering from Twilight sinking the toy all the way into her, she had hilted, her hips working on instinct, it would seem, and bottoming her out inside that hot, grasping hole. You feel real nice," Applejack said, as she now felt Twilight's hot, squeezing innards instill in her growing what could be likened to a hunger of sorts. It was similar to the urge she felt during her heats, yet different, making her want to take the mare she was buried in instead of being taken herself. "You think I could start now? I really wanna." As if to answer, Twilight pulled the dildo out, then started to slowly thrust it back into Applejack at that moment, it easily sliding deeper and making the latter gently gasp at the sensation. "Oh, Twi, it's going so deep," Applejack said, and on an instinct she was now unable to contain, she had started to rock her own hips into and out of Twilight, making the mounted mare moan. The sensation of that warm, pulsing hardness being introduced further into her squeezing, fertile body. The mare she loved draped upon her, and being the source of that feeling, made Twilight feel complete in a base, instinctive way she had never experienced before. Nothing that a toy could do, that's for sure. "Yeah, it feels really good when you're hilted in me. Ha, you sexy little stud," Twilight asked, as she felt with her magic that the dildo was base deep in Applejack a moment later, the fake testes pressed against her soaked thighs and teats, just as Applejack had in turn once again hilted in her. You want to get nice and deep in me, and I want you deep in me. I want you to put a fall right into my uterus, Applejack. Come in my womb. Applejack didn't respond, in her bliss as she felt the pseudo-phallus sliding in and out of her marehood, feeling her fluids streaming down her occasionally trembling back legs, soaking her rump and the sheets under her in her arousal. Each pump she now gave Twilight made Applejack's body shudder, her mind fuzzy, her breathing staccato, this feeling perfect as she kept rocking her hips and breathing her mare as well as accepting what Twilight was so vigorously giving her at the same time, meeting each so deep push, feeling it pressing tightly against something deep inside her with each hilting, as she meanwhile humped deep into Twilight, encasing her rump with her stifles each time. She had established a rhythm of hilting Twilight, then pulling back and filling herself with the dildo, unable to escape the repeated sensations of filling her mare, then being filled herself one after the other. Twilight, meanwhile, felt her heat being sated, the sensations rolling through her becoming of pleasure instead of unpleasant need, her instincts finally calming down, as she was being bred now. She felt as Applejack bottomed out in her the same way that her dildo always did, in a way that would make any stallion's dream come true, to get that deep into a mare, loving everything about this as Applejack so deeply, fairly ravished her. This wasn't love-making as they usually did by any means. This was Applejack breeding her new stallion instincts apparently overwhelming her. Twilight loved how hard she was humping her and making her whole body rock with each impact, feeling just how deep she was going as her long rod tapped against her deepest depths, the very tip of her flare's process threading to penetrate into her womb as she had asked. She loved how unrestrained Applejack took her kneading body as her own, with the wet smacks from each slap of Applejack's balls to her soaked ass echoing through the room. You getting close, Applejack? Twilight asked some time of pure pleasure later, as she noticed Applejack's winks and squeezes, her cock's throb, and her hips' tempo were growing much more rapid and less steady, feeling her balls tensing and her penis flexing hard each time she was hilted, her breaths growing heavier. Knowing from her reading that meant that the stallion was getting close to their climax, the brief expansion she felt inside her with each flex confirming that, with Twilight knowing it was the start of a mating flare, knowing it was going to keep Applejack's seed from escaping her when it fully swelled up at orgasm, and instead would force it deeper into her womb. That fact being one of Twilight's deepest fetishes. You ready to come in me? Ready to flare and inseminate me? Applejack tried to reply, but instead only gave a deep moan as Twilight suddenly shifted the dildo downward, a series of hard throbs coming from her penis as the toy pushed that super sensitive place she now knew as her G-spot and started to rub there constantly. I'm gonna make you come so hard, Applejack. You're gonna knock me up, and I'm going to love it. Every second of it. As she felt a tingling, rubbing sensation on her clit that could only be Twilight's common practice of setting her over, catching a mid-wink and rubbing circles on it. Applejack finally gave a high-pitched howl of pleasure as she felt the familiar pressure in her belly burst alongside the unfamiliar one in her pelvis, her whole body tensing as she slammed into Twilight very hard a few times, then tensed up on the last one, leaving herself balls deep once more. She quickly, roughly, met her muzzle with her mare's, kissing her fairly. As she climaxed, Applejack felt something burst inside her, feeling her new appendage throbbing hard and Twilight growing a lot tighter around her, knowing she must be flaring inside her mate, and what a flare it must be, judging by how tight her passage had suddenly gotten. She, meanwhile, felt the dildo stretching deep inside of her belly as well, followed by a pulsing sensation coming from the toy, now hilted in her and unmoving. She knew the dildo was coming in her, just as she was coming into Twilight, the dildo and her cock throbbing almost in tandem. What was happening in Applejack's passage, almost mirroring what Twilight was feeling right now, just as the clever Alicorn had planned. Suddenly, Applejack felt a wet heat deep inside her own belly, even warmer than what the toy itself had gotten from the lovely friction it had caused. As she felt the hot cum shoot into her, Applejack fell limp and silent on Twilight, their lips parting as she instead pinned her down and held tight on instinct as her whole body started trembling. Applejack being launched into the most intense orgasm she had ever had, indeed, experiencing 2 orgasms at the same time. Applejack's body was clamping down on the now pulsing, twitching dildo inside of her, even as she started to pump her own virile load into Twilight's inmost vagina and womb. Feeling her flare sealed against Twilight's deepest wall, and the very tip of her urethral process penetrating her relaxed cervix just a bit as she had hilted, Applejack's mare honey flowed like a waterfall down her quaking legs, as her mind went white at the sheer overstimulation. She felt as each pulse of cum passed through her penis, and as another thick glob of her seed shot deep into Twilight's fertile, squeezing fields, undoubtedly soon to bear the fruits of their labors within her. After a few seconds, Applejack came back to reality upon hearing Twilight giving a deep moan of her own, as she squirmed and tensed up beneath her, pinned down, as she felt the deep pulses of Applejack's warmth now spreading and pooling far inside her belly. Celestia, flared so huge. It's come so hot. Your cum, I feel throbbing deep, warm in my belly. I'm gonna, Twilight stammered out in a rushed verbal collage of unfinished thoughts, punctuating them with another deep, very deep moan. As Applejack looked beneath her, she saw Twilight's head rolled back and felt it pressed tightly against her shoulder, her mouth open and her eyes sealed as only tiny squeaks came from her. Applejack then felt an incredible tightness on her stallionhood as Twilight apparently reached her own intense apex and started milking her of the rest of her sperm, putting her in a daze as Twilight's hips sharply arched upward and forced her throbbing rod completely inside of her. Every inch of her taken in and being roughly massaged now as she pushed more harshly against her cervix, her process going into her cervix a bit more and held there, her next heavy stream of cum ending up directly inside Twilight's fertile womb. Applejack's forehooves simply started grasping tighter onto the mare's barrel as she stood planted and trembling, trying to anchor herself to something in the maelstrom of pleasure raging through her, as every drop of cum was squeezed and milked from her, her flared sheer size making anything escaping impossible. Twilight cried out once more as a spray of mare cum escaped her, her womb happily accepting Applejack's bountiful load within itself, as her inner muscles tugged and needed for more stallion batter to make a fall with, each one making an almost overwhelming pulse of pleasure roll through Twilight, feeling as the absolutely massive flare stretching her deepest reaches taut, throbbed through each squeeze and pulse. Twilight felt her belly filling up quite nicely with the warm, thick, and deeply pleasing sensation of a very generous donation of her mare's virile spunk inside her. The sensation feeling perfect to her deepest animal instincts, her need to be bred and filled up satisfied completely. After a long while of coming together, Twilight slumped down onto the bed, and Applejack lay bonelessly atop of her as the smallest spurt of seeds finally slowed, then stopped, their lust sated, as both mares lay panting, completely satisfied and sharing their afterglows in silence. Applejack remained lodged inside of Twilight, keeping her fertile payload of seed deep inside her mare's womb, her very swollen flare leaving her process pressed just inside Twilight's cervix as she remained hilted. Her flared head and Twilight's downward angle prevented anything from getting out, and indeed encouraged it deeper instead, keeping it right where it was needed. That feeling of her cock being totally encased within her heated mare, and the warm, lovely sensation of her own cream pie held deep inside her own womb from the still hilted dildo, left Applejack feeling quite lovely and pleasantly fulfilled in every way. "I've never come so hard in my life. Holy hay," she said wearily, squirming a bit more and receiving a quiet from Twilight, as well as an internal hug on her stallionhood as well. Wow, so that's it? I'm pregnant now? Twilight asked her more than her partner, rubbing over her slightly domed lower belly from the side as she looked down, shuddering as she felt the warmth of Applejack's seed inside of what was likely her womb, as well as the swollen flare still deep within her passage, keeping it all in. Maybe on account I just bred ya during your heat and ya said this thing can make babies, Applejack replied, letting that fact sink in for herself. She and Twilight were probably going to have a foal together now. They were going to have a foal that was a part of both of them. I'm sure our foal will be beautiful, just like its mother. Its mothers, Twilight corrected, giving her mate a nuzzle, then softly meeting her lip with her mate's, kissing her softly and feeling as the familiar tingles went down her spine. It was quite a while, save for the soft smacks of their lips, until something else popped into Applejack's mind. Hey, Twi, you alright? You're awful quiet. I'm fine, but I can't really feel my back legs. Is that normal? Yeah, I think it's normal, especially given your size and style. I think I was a bit too rough on you. No, I love just what you did, AJ, and wouldn't have wanted it any other way. More silence, only their quiet panting heard. Twi? Yeah? Are you sure you're ready to have a foal? If and you do get preggers? Twilight smirked, reaching back to give Applejack a kiss on the top of her muzzle. Well, if I weren't, I wouldn't have given you a virile penis and allowed you to ejaculate fertile sperm inside of me while I was potentially ovulating, would I have? Besides, even if I didn't want to have foals yet, and if I knew it would feel that good, I'll gladly have a foal just to feel that. Oh, Celestia, that feeling when you came inside me, the way you just swelled up huge and frothed all that hot cum. Twilight shuddered, unable to even put in words how good that felt, nor how complete it made her feel to be filled up by her lover in her heat. Applejack grinned, remembering how wonderful it had felt when Twilight had bred her during her own heat, giving a gentle moan from the memory. Well, I suppose ya wouldn't have given me a baby-making dick and let me rut ya with it if ya didn't want to have foals. Twilight chuckled. So of course I wanted this, Applejack. Well, in that case, can we do it again? I'd just want to make sure, good and sure, you're satisfied, you see. Well, with as much semen as you deposited into my uterus and vaginal fornix, probably at least 200 milliliters, judging by how stuffed I feel, I'm certain conception will be initialized within a few hours if it's gonna be. But you just wanna rub me some more, don't you? Twilight smirked back, before rocking her hips and eliciting a gasp as her still-filled passage easily slid along Applejack's rock-hard cock. Well, I'm still in heat, and I for sure want to have more of your lovely cum in me. So yeah, fill me up more. I want another load of your hot cum in my womb, then another, and another. As Applejack started rocking her hips again, Twilight moaned, feeling her dick still rock hard inside of herself, and meeting each slow thrust with a push back of her own. Oh yeah, Applejack, rub me till you're sure I'm pregnant. Oh, don't ya worry, princess. I'll make good and sure ya get a foal, Applejack said with a very dirty tone, pulling her hips back and jamming herself deep inside Twilight again, a few drops of her precious seed leaking out onto her and into the huge puddle already beneath her, the roughness earning a quiet squeal of pleasure from Twilight as Applejack once more kissed her roughly, her tongue eagerly welcomed in and meeting with Twilight's. That night was going to be a very long and very messy night.